In this video, we're going to review the second of two forms that are used to process workers' compensation claims, namely the medical certification form. The other form being the SIF2 form, and the SIF2 form was reviewed in a previous video. While the medical certification form has fewer fields, it can prove challenging because it involves interaction with the physician or the physician's assistant that is treating your illness or injury. This form is also used for non-workplace injuries and illness if an individual is going to be off work for longer than 4 shifts. It's important that this form be filled out completely and legibly. If the form is not complete when it's submitted, the employee will be required to go back to the physician or the physician's assistant and have the form filled out. Once it's complete, the form can be submitted to the operations analyst in person, or a digital image can be created of the form and sent to the operations analyst. In order to be eligible for time loss payments, an employee must be authorized to be off work by a physician or a physician's assistant, and this form is what authorizes that leave. Anytime there's a workplace injury for which the employee sought medical attention, a medical certification form will be required, even if there will not be any time loss. As you look at the form, you see that there is a header and 3 sections. Let's review these areas one at a time. Beginning with the header, you see 4 fields: the employee's name, the nature of the illness and injury, and a field that's titled Date of Start, Onset of Date of Injury or Illness. This date should be the same date on each form turned in for a specific injury. It's the first date that the employee was off work because of the injury or illness. Even if an employee does not seek medical attention immediately after the injury or illness, this date is not the date that the employee sees the physician, but the date that the injury or the illness began. The last field is entitled, Is this a work-related injury, illness, or exposure? Yes or no. As mentioned before, this form will be used for non-work-related injuries and illnesses as well as work-related injuries and illnesses. This field indicates whether this form will be used to open a workers' compensation claim or whether it's simply certifying the employee's medical status. Section 1 is entitled Medical Certification of Illness and Injury. This section certifies the employee's inability to work based on the job analysis because of the injury or the illness. The medical professional would look at the job analysis, examine the employee, and fill out the form indicating that the employee cannot work as a result of the injury. The first highlighted field in Section 1 indicates the date from which time the employee was unable to perform the job functions based on the job analysis. If the employee has delayed seeking medical care, this date might be backdated to the point in time where the injury or the illness began. There are fields for the type of practice that the medical professional is in, his telephone number, his printed name, his signature, and the date of his signature. The last 2 fields in Section 1 are repeated in other sections. These are very important fields and can cause some confusion. The first of those is the date of the next medical evaluation. When an employee sees a medical professional for an injury or illness, updated doctor's notes are required after each evaluation. This date simply indicates the point in time when the organization would expect to see those updated doctor's notes. The second field is the expected date to return to light or full duty. This date is an estimate and may change. It gives an indication of the potential duration of the injury or illness. It's also important to understand that this field is not a release to full or light duty. It's an estimate. In order to be released to light or full duty, Sections 2 or 3 need to be completed. Let's look at Section 2. As you see, Section 2 is entitled Medical Certification for Light Duty. If at any point the medical professional feels the employee is able to work light duty, this section needs to be completed. The first field is the date on which the employee may begin light duty based on the job analysis. As you can see in both Sections 1 and 2, it's important that the job analysis be provided to the medical professional while they're making this evaluation. The next field lists any restrictions for the light duty, such as lifting restrictions, etc. The same fields in Section 1 are repeated in Section 2. Type of practice of the medical professional, their title, their name, their signature, and the date of their signature. You'll notice the last 2 fields from Section 1 are repeated in Section 2. The date of the next medical evaluation is the date with which the organization would expect to see updated doctor's notes. An employee is required to provide updated doctor's notes after each regularly scheduled appointment. The expected date to return to full duty is also an estimate, and that date may change. Let's take a look at Section 3. Section 3 is used by the medical professional to certify that the employee is free to return to full duty with no restrictions based on the job analysis. The medical professional needs to have the job analysis to evaluate when making that decision. The first highlighted field in Section 3 is, I certify the employee is released to full duty based on the job analysis beginning. The date placed in this field is the first day you will be able to come to work. Type of practice, title, printed name, signature, and date of signature are the same as in Sections 1 and 2. So let's review. The medical certification form is one of two forms that is used to process your workers' compensation claim if it's a workplace injury or illness. It's also used for non-workplace injuries and illnesses to certify time off after 4 shifts and to certify light duty and a return to full duty. As an employee progresses through their recovery, Sections 1, 2, and 3 would be filled out by the medical professional in sequence using the job analysis. If an employee has a relapse and needs to go the other direction, then Sections 3, 2, and 1 are filled out in each case. The job analysis has to be given to the medical professional each time a section is filled out, and every time an employee has a regularly scheduled appointment with their medical professional, updated doctor's notes are required and should be submitted to the operations analyst. This concludes Video 5 of our Injury, Illness, and Exposure Reporting training.